Hey, brother. You know what, guys? The Infinity Saga isn't over. I want more. I need more. It can't be over. Why? Why can't there just be more Avengers versus Thanos? I want more of it. I mean, I guess at least there is Far From Home to look forward to. That's not that far off. But it's just not gonna be the same. Like, what's even the point of going on with it now? You know what? Actually, I'm glad that it's over. I'm glad that it happened, and I'm glad that I got to be there and along for the ride. Today, we're going to be talking about the Avengers and the 5 stages of grief. Just a quick warning before we get started, there will be spoilers in this video for Avengers Endgame. You have been warned. Guys, for today's video, we have partnered with Mental Health America, a nonprofit organization that is looking to provide mental health care for everyone. May is Mental Health Month, and Mental Health America is promoting their free online screening tools, which we're going to link to in the description down below. We will also link to their information on finding treatment or support groups, just like the one we saw in Endgame. Although not exactly like the one in Endgame. Hopefully you're not there because half the universe disappeared. So in the spirit of Mental Health Awareness Month, we thought we would tackle the 5 stages of grief, because Avengers Endgame actually does a spectacular job of outlining each stage, as each of the original 6 Avengers seems to find themselves at the beginning of this movie very securely in one stage of the grieving process. If you are unfamiliar with the 5 stages of grief, they are in order: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Now, it should be noted that these aren't hard and fast rules, and some people will skip stages or get stuck in a stage, as you will soon see. But they do happen in this order, and if successful, hopefully you will reach the acceptance stage. Originally, when the 5 stages were first kind of discovered, it had a lot more to do with patients who had just found out they had a terminal illness. But as it turns out, it actually applies to anybody dealing with any kind of trauma or loss. And so, as you might imagine, after half of all living everyone was snapped out of existence, there was some stuff people needed to work through. And as the movie opens, everything is still pretty fresh for everyone. It's only been 21 days and almost everyone is either still in the denial or anger stage. It's a very like, we can still fix this attitude. Last time you didn't have me. Let's go and kick his purple butt and get the gauntlet back and reverse this whole thing.
Just like that.
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah, just like that. It's fine, everything's fine. We're still gonna fix it. Nothing that has been done can't be undone. We totally got this. So most of those guys are still in the denial stage. And then alternatively, you've got Thor, who's just brooding with anger, and Rhodey, who's just shooting down ideas left and right out of frustration.
Hey, new girl. Everybody in this room is about that superhero life.
And they aren't quite wrong at this point. If their plan succeeds, it's still possible they could reverse it, and they do come really close. But when they arrive on Thanos' spiky fruit farm, cut off his arm, and realize that all of the stones are gone, that is when the real grief starts settling in. And then we see 5 years pass, and that is when we really start to see each of the 5 stages of grief really accurately outlined. First, let's look at Black Widow, who is stuck at denial. Denial is the first stage of the process, and usually where people go to get over the shock of what's happened, insisting that maybe it didn't happen, or hoping against hope that somehow it could still be reversed. According to SciComm.net, at this stage, you are not living in actual reality. Rather, you are living in a preferable reality. It's largely about suppressing your feelings instead of actually feeling them. And if there's one thing that we know about Nat, it's that she's spent basically her entire life doing exactly that. So kind of not even surprisingly, that's exactly what she's been doing for the past 5 years. She is the lone wolf left at Avengers HQ, still trying to put together some kind of a plan, still pleading for a world in which the Avengers is still a thing. And she even says,
I used to have nothing, and then I got this family.
Where she's at is really demonstrated in its most obvious form, especially relative to others, when she's having the hologram meeting with Rocket, Okoye, Rhodey, and Carol. And not to say that all of them have necessarily moved on either, but you can tell that all of them feel like she's still kind of just grasping for straws. Nat's all like, underwater earthquake, what's up with that? What are we doing about it? And Okoye is like, it's an underwater earthquake. What we're doing about it is nothing, except for totally setting up Namor, aka Marvel's Aquaman, which, by the way, I am available for casting. Point is, Nat is just trying to find a way to be productive, trying to find a way to prove that it's not all over, because if it is, she loses all of her identity. Which brings us very fittingly to number 2, Clint and anger. Clint basically does lose his entire identity in probably the most heart-wrenching opening to a movie since, like, Up. And he does not take it well at all, basically going on a worldwide killing spree. But you can kind of see how he ended up there. Like, he wasn't able to help out in Infinity War, and now all is lost. So he lashes out by tethering his pain to anger. Thanos didn't get you, so I will. You didn't die, but my family did. They didn't deserve it, but you do. Whew. Little heavy shooting today. The point is though, when you're dealing with a loss, it will start to feel like you are no longer connected to anything that matters. Quite literally lost yourself. And anger can feel like a form of structure to attach your emotions to. And for Clint, Ronan is quite literally that structure. But it is an important part of the grieving process. You need to feel that emotion, and the more that you allow yourself to feel it, the more that it'll dissipate. But do you know who is surprisingly not a giant green anger monster in this movie? Which brings us to number 3, bargaining. Bargaining is when you start to try and kid yourself that things are better by negotiating with your grief. In the past, Bruce has kind of found a strange coping mechanism to deal with the Hulk.
I'm always angry.
And it served as a fairly unpredictable wild card for the guy. He doesn't really have good control of it most of the time, or he finds himself stuck between one of the two options. So it's strange to find ourselves with a Bruce that's kind of somewhere right in between, a veritable broke, if you will. And he actually seems so happy. You might even be fooled into believing that he's actually made his way through his grief and reached acceptance. And yet, no. Professor Hulk is really just a physical manifestation of Bruce going through the bargaining stage. The best example is right when we meet him at the diner, where you can tell that he's trying to replace his grief with happiness in any way he can find. Like, hey look, I fixed my Hulk problem, I'm so happy! I get to eat all of this food, that means I'm happy! Little kids adore me, that means I'm happy. I'm really unhappy that I just had to dab. And to be fair, he does look happy, but acceptance doesn't mean being happy after the thing. It means fully accepting what's happened and learning to live with it. Which you can tell he hasn't, because he still agrees to help them invent time travel, which he himself admits is not his area of expertise at all. And interestingly, bargaining actually even comes up when Bruce himself goes to collect his stone, the Time Stone, where every other stone actually involved a fight of some kind, his was more of a bargain. Man, those magicians really like a good deal.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
But that brings us to number 4, depression and Thor. Depression is often the hardest stage to get through, and when things are at their worst. You've fully realized that the situation is over, and you feel like the easiest thing to do is to give up. What's the point? Why get up? Why take care of myself? Let me just feel numb. Now, I've heard a lot of people kind of complain about the treatment of Thor in this movie, and kind of myself included. It screwed with what I imagined Thor to be like, but given his circumstances, we almost should have seen it coming. Going back to Infinity War, he is on his last leg. He has lost it all. And having done everything he could do, including being punched in the face by a star, he still loses. It's all for nothing. Nothing works. He's one of the most powerful beings in existence, and he's still lost. But possibly what makes Thor's condition even worse is the fact that he has completely stalled. Unwilling to process the grief any further, he has stolen away to a menial existence of battling internet trolls and mostly just trying to drown it away. Which is even more devastating when you consider how close he is to number 5, acceptance. We see acceptance with Tony. And now the important thing to keep in mind about this particular step is that it's not like Tony is saying it's okay that the snap happened. What he's saying is the snap happened and I am now okay. Tony found himself in kind of a unique position after the snap. Unlike Clint, who lost literally 4 members of his 5-person family, Tony had the advantage of making it through with his closest loved one, Pepper. And his dream from the beginning of Infinity War about having a child comes to fruition, and he has Morgan and basically something to live for. But that's not to say that Tony just made it through this because he had some good things happen. Tony had to go through all of these stages of grief, and arguably even twice. Remember what we said earlier, the stages of grief were originally discovered around people who discovered they had terminal illnesses. That's exactly where Tony finds himself at the beginning of this movie, lost in space, without resources, having to accept the fact that he's going to die out there. And upon reaching acceptance, he was miraculously saved, brought back to Earth, and had to restart the whole process over again. So kind of understandably, the first emotion we see out of him after he's face to face with the team again is anger. What Tony knows though is that he did everything that he could to try to protect the world from what happened before it happened.
I see a suit of armor around the world.
Everything he did after the Battle of New York was in an attempt to stop Thanos, even if he didn't even realize who he was fighting at the time. But there he finds himself on the other side. He lost, Thanos won, the mitten is gone. And yet he's left standing, a survivor with a wife and a kid. A purpose. So when Cap shows up with this grand plan for a time heist, it's easy to see why he said no. He's accepted the situation and just moved on. It's not okay that it's happened, but it did, and fictional science isn't the answer. Until he invents it like one day later because he's just too curious. And speaking of Cap, you might be wondering, where does he fit in all of this? Well, if you ask me if the other 5 Avengers each represent a stage of grief, I would argue that Cap represents the grief counselor. I mean, not for nothing, but he literally starts the movie as an actual grief counselor, so there's that. But he tries to get Nat to see the bright side and sends her to recruit Clint. He convinces Bruce to work on a time machine and sends him to get Thor. And although it takes a little bit longer, he ultimately gets Tony's mind back in the mission and gets him on board as well. Honestly, what I love so much about this idea is that it goes beyond overanalysis or just an observation about the movie. It feels legitimately planned. All of the characters fit their stage so well, and I think it speaks volumes to the idea that this movie isn't just like a major cinematic moment, but it also comes with a spectacular message. And guys, for my question of the day, it's not even a question, it is a request of the day. Leave just a positive thought in the towel section down below for someone who might need it. And guys, as a reminder, we have all of the information for Mental Health America. If you are looking for help or know someone who is, all of that information is down below. But guys, as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you'd like to see me and Jay's full, complete spoiler review of Avengers Endgame, you can click right here. Or if you would like to see us sort the Avengers into Hogwarts houses, you can click right here. But Jay, that's all I've got for you today, man. I will see you on Tuesday.